I was driving down the highway, not knowing what the next steps were, but knowing I couldn't stay in the relationship that I was in. That was the beginning of a 2-year custody battle. And at the end of that, the unimaginable for me happened. I lost custody of my son. The pain when I woke up the morning after he was gone was beyond bearable. Like, I didn't know how I was going to get through the next 10 minutes, but I was somehow, with a court order, supposed to just get on with life. I couldn't go into depression and expect him to survive. I had to live, so he had an example to follow and see.
I'd been in ministry and had been working with a lot of young adults and walking them through dating, marriage, and all of a sudden I found myself in a season where I'm separated and my wife saying, I want a divorce. How did I get here? Like, I would not have ever pictured myself to be in that situation. Finding myself homeless and not having a place to put my kids to bed at night. I knew I was not going to live if I didn't pursue getting healthy. So
you become whole individuals. What did it look like to all of a sudden bring that together and become one?
Well, I would say the first thing.
Some people rebuild their lives once. Garth and Melanie built their lives twice. First individually after deep brokenness, and then together as a blended family that looks nothing like the past they came from. Their story is proof that healing is possible, wholeness is possible, and freedom is possible, even after everything else falls apart. Thank you, Garth and Melanie. Today I get the honor to sit beside both of you. And you've had both a tremendous impact on my life, as well as I know so many other lives. You run Your Limits Lifted, where you're coaching individuals of how to bust through the limits that they have on their own lives. But I think what's incredible is the story that you have of how you've done that in your own individual lives first, and then can really lead from that personal experience of how do you grow other individuals. Garth, you and I used to work together, and there's so many fundamental principles that I learned in that early spot of my career, which has been able to just exemplify me and push me much further than I ever anticipated. So I feel like I got a degree from you. So the Garth University, you can get the accreditation somewhere. And Melanie, just your constant reassurance. You just bring so much peace to situations. And I remember sitting and having conversations with you a handful of times and just the peace that you have. So I'm really grateful that you're both here and excited to continue learning from both of you.
Thanks, Andrew. It's a privilege to be here, and we're excited to share what's on our heart and our story. And
both of you, you're obviously grandparents, you have children, husband and wife, you do ministry together, you also run business together. There's a lot on the go. What does this season of life feel like right now for you?
I think it feels full. Yeah. There's lots of facets to it, and we're building a lot of things. We're enjoying our family. And sometimes when you're building, you don't fully know what you're building. And things have come our way that we never had on a vision board or as a goal. But as you take one door that opens, it's amazing how other doors open and things come together beyond your comprehension or effort.
How about for you, Garth? What does this season feel like?
It feels like we're just kind of along for the ride a little bit. And, as we are stepping into our purpose and that purpose being defined a little bit more and a little clearer, it is just kind of moving forward, taking on the new things that are coming and letting go of the things that no longer kind of fit or match or serve us in those ways. And really excited. Yeah. Just excited about what's coming.
I want to backtrack just to give everyone perspective of where your life has come from and where you are now. And something I really appreciate is you both lead with authenticity. You're willing to be vulnerable and have those conversations. And I know that a chapter of the life was some brokenness on both ends individually. I'm wondering if you'd be willing to share a bit of what that looked like and the redemption process individually first.
Sure. I think my brokenness happened before Garth's. I got married at 21, and by 27, I was driving down the highway, not knowing what the next steps were, but knowing I couldn't stay in the relationship that I was in. And we were married, we had a 2-year-old son, and that was the beginning of a 2-year custody battle. And at the end of that, the unimaginable for me happened. I lost custody of my son. And the pain when I woke up the morning after he was gone was beyond bearable. Like, I didn't know how I was going to get through the next 10 minutes, but I was somehow, with a court order, supposed to just get on with life. And so I was in a really dark time, a period of really survival, and had to really rebuild myself from the inside out, although I didn't know that in my darkest time, but definitely was broken.
And so I think a lot of people, unfortunately, encounter that in their life. But the unfortunate part is they stay in that survival mode. They stay in that brokenness. You said for yourself, you needed to work through that, even though you didn't know that you needed to work through that at the time. What did that battle look like?
Well, there were 2 pivotal decisions that changed everything. And so the first one happened about 2 weeks after I left my marriage, and I came to faith, came to believing faith in Jesus. And I had grown up believing in God, but not knowing he was a personal God, actually not thinking there was any way for me to be right with God. So I just saw him as a judge waiting to see me do something wrong so he could punish me. And I had a revelation of his love for me in that really vulnerable time. And so it brought hope that sustained me through the season of destruction I was about to walk through. And I don't think I would have made it if I hadn't put my trust in him with my life at that point. I think it just would have been impossible. And fast forward a few years, I had my feet under me. Life had gone from survival to struggle, which is a huge improvement over survival, and then from struggle to stable. So like not celebrating every day, but stable, like ups and downs and handling things. And I was invited to a workshop, and the second day of the workshop, the person facilitating just seemed to be reading my mail. And she started talking about bad things have happened to you. It's been unfair. It's been unjust. She began to talk about the pain, and my heart started to beat fast. My mind started racing. Maybe she can help me stop the pain, because I was stable, but I was still hurting every day. I still woke up every day feeling punched in the stomach when I remembered my son's not here. He's not here today. He's not coming tomorrow. And so I'm listening, thinking, what's she going to say? I'm expecting her to sympathize with me, comfort me, say how wrong it was, what happened to me. And instead, her next words were, "This way of thinking is called," and I didn't even hear what she said after that. My mind was racing. I'm thinking, what way of thinking? What does she mean? How can there be a way of thinking? Doesn't everybody just think? My thoughts are going 100 miles an hour trying to process this. And then she begins to describe a victim mentality. And I had no idea what a victim mentality was. I had no idea how that was affecting me, but she was speaking right to me. And it actually brought hope, because I went, if my thinking is the problem, I can change my thinking. And that was the best news I had received in a long time. And so coming to faith was vital. It was the love of God that sustained me. But I know that I could still be a broken person today, probably sitting in church, maybe on my 3rd or 4th marriage, wondering, why does this always happen to me? If I hadn't come to understand I had a victim mentality and that I didn't actually have to live life the way I was living it.
I love the fact that someone was willing to have the tough conversation with you. There's this saying, clear as kind. And I think oftentimes we think the kindest thing is to not bring it up, don't say it, we don't want to ruffle feathers. But the kindest thing someone can do is to be ultra clear of what's going on, whether it's expectations, whether it's that mindset shift, whatever it might be. And to have someone that was willing to love you so much that they were willing to call out that mindset is huge.
It absolutely is. And it's often counter our nature. Like, we want to comfort the hurting person. We want to make things better for them. But I was just continuing on a trajectory of pain if my thinking didn't change. And so I am so thankful for someone who not only understood, but was using her life and her understanding to change other people's lives.
Garth, let's switch over to yourself, because I know that your story there's some interesting nuances to that. Do you want to share a little bit about your background before Melanie and what that looked like?
Sure. I found myself in my mid-30s. I'd been in ministry and had been working with a lot of young adults and helping them and walking them through dating, marriage, and walking with a number of them. And all of a sudden I found myself in a season where I'm separated, and my wife saying, I want a divorce. I'm going in a different direction, and we're done. And so I went through a number of kind of internal battles in that process as well. First of all, how did I get here? Like, I would not have ever have pictured myself to be in that situation. And it took a real hard look at myself and how did I get here? And to kind of rewind a little bit, we had a number of years earlier gone through the whole infertility, process and dealing with that and processing through a number of mindset shifts that I had to go through into the adoption process. We had our kids. We had to fight for our kids, to have them part of the family, only then to be told that, no, that you're not wanted as part of this. And then, going into two separate households and going through the process of, separation, divorce, and now raising kids, as a single dad every other weekend. And that, that just brought up all kinds of different, mindset, confronted me with some of the mindsets and beliefs that I had that I needed to confront if I was going to, change where my life was going, or if it was just going to continue on that path of just feeling like everything's just falling apart.
And I know you've shared in the past some of the external factors that were also taking place. Share a little bit about the accommodations that you were living in during that season.
Well, in that season, we had moved to a new area. We're in a new part of the country. How I ended up in this part of the country is I thought I was coming to visit her and her family. She had the kids out with some family here. And when I got to the airport to join them at the end of a visit time, thinking we're all going back home, she said, "No, I'm not going back." And in that moment, I decided, well, I guess this is where I'm going to live, and I'm going to try to figure out what's happening and where things are going. And in that season, just kind of trying to then figure out, okay, how do I start a life here? How do I try to figure out how I got here, and how to rebuild and how to parent in that situation. And was really in just a survival state. Just the practicality of just, working a number of different jobs, trying to keep a couple of households together, trying to, be involved with my kids, and then try to piece together what's left of life and what does life look like now moving forward.
And not even having your own place to take your kids to.
Right. Right. So, kind of finding myself homeless, and not having a place to put my kids to bed at night. When I was able to kind of get my feet under me, and I'm renting a room and couldn't bring my kids to that home. So I went back into, the marital home that I was helping pay for, a couple days a week during the days. And then leave in the evening to go back to my place, and not being able to put my kids to bed was it was a struggle.
And I'm assuming I know the answer to this, but during that season, did it feel like there was any happiness?
For me, happiness was a choice that when I got to be with my son, I was going to make it the best I could and the most normal I could. And so he really was a lot of my incentive for choosing how I was going to think and whether I was going to cover my head up, which would have been easier, like stay in bed, cover your head, versus get up, go to work, be successful, do what's needed, celebrate Christmas on December 29th, if that's the day you get to be together for Christmas. And don't worry about what's happening on December 25th. Be with the people you're with and find life in the moment. I had to do that. I couldn't go into depression. I couldn't go into depression and expect him to survive. I had to live, so he had an example to follow and see.
And choosing to live that out and choosing to lead so that way he sees. I really appreciate that. How about yourself, Garth?
I would say, oddly enough, yes, there was some happiness in the sense of part of that story is I worked a night shift by myself in a sawmill. I did nighttime security and cleanup and oil and lube, work in a really big facility by myself all night. And I actually started to enjoy me. And, what really could have been a really dark, literally, dark season, it was a long shift. It was a 14-hour shift by myself every night, or, the nights the nights of the week that I worked. But I actually found some joy and happiness in it, even though I was still living in despair. And then I was kind of in this paradigm of despair, but yet there was some happiness in the simple things.
So how does someone practically do so? Like you're talking about living in this darkness, literally a dark sawmill, but finding this ability to enjoy yourself. How does someone that's going through a similar season or just in darkness in general, how do they do that?
I can say for me, what my journey was I recognized that I wanted a different future. And I realized that what my decisions today are going to affect my future moving forward. So I didn't really know what it was, but I started to try to seek out, okay, what is going to set me up into a different trajectory? Because I came to the realization that the way I'd been thinking and the way I have been got me in that mess. And it wasn't going to, I wasn't able to get myself out of it because I got myself in it. And the mindsets and beliefs that got me there would have to change if I wanted to get out of it. So I just would really just kind of pursued, like, what are different ways of thinking and who to get around. Now, I had some really limited, time frames and the number of jobs I was working and just my life situations, but I really was intentional to move forward and to be in some circles that would expose me to something different. And, that often, took, I was looking for kind of a men's group at one point, and I was like, okay, I have Wednesday evening between this time, what's available? And it took me, searching. It was an 1.5-hour drive. Well, not quite an hour, but an hour drive that I had to out of my way, completely not in my community, completely in a different spot. But I decided, okay, I got to make that trip every week because that's the window of time I have. And those people, I think, have something that will help me in that season.
And I love the fact that you were pursuing intentionality, even if it came at the cost of comfort, because comfort would have been just staying at home and doing whatever else you wanted. But you knew that you needed something deeper. And so there was this intentionality behind, I'm going to drive out of my way to pursue individuals that have what I want, and how can I glean that off of them?
And I would even correct you to say, I don't even know if comfort, because I didn't feel like I had comfort.
Fair. Yeah.
Like, at that season, after I moved out of that one room and then said, okay, now I need a place to live. And I had a very short window of time to make that change. So I bought an old condemned house trailer. And it was okay, I'm going to fix this thing up. And it was like, I was either fixing up the house so I had a place for me and my kids, or I was working, or I was driving somewhere, once a week to be a part of some sort of, group that was going to help me in my own growth. And survival was kind of comfort. Like I was going to die. I knew I was not going to live if I didn't pursue getting healthy.
Walk me through, both of you. You go through this season, you're rebuilding your lives. You said finding faith, finding someone to call you out on your mindset. For you, Garth, it sounds like it was primarily just that mindset shift of, how do I choose a positive mindset throughout this? What was that journey to become whole again as individuals?
One of the things, even following what we've already just shared, but choosing who we were around was critical. Like misery loves company. Yeah. It's really easy to find somebody with the same trouble as you have and feel understood. I deliberately chose healthy people to be around. I sought out people that I thought I would like the quality of life they're living. That's who I'm going to pursue friendship with, spend time with, because if I can think how they think, if I can do what they do, then I can produce the kind of life that they have. And so the people really mattered. Being in God's house every week was a decision I made. It was like, no matter where my thinking went in the ups and downs of the day, it seemed like Sunday helped me find my bearings again. It helped bring hope back again. It brought peace. It brought security. It gave me what I need to keep going forward. God's word even was a lifeline, like Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans I have for you, plans for good and not for evil, plans to give you a hope and a future. When I was still in the middle of a custody battle, there were days when I had to go read that every 10 minutes. It was like taking a breath of air and believing that there was some good ahead for me, even if I couldn't see any of it. And just continually choosing the hard that would build life rather than letting the fact that it was hard deter me from making those choices. That's one of the most common reasons I hear people say as to why they don't want to fight for themselves is it's hard. And I think it's hard either way. It's hard if you fight, and it's hard if you don't. And so why not put your effort into the hard that's going to produce a change on the life that you want?
And I'm assuming during that season is when you wrote I Don't Think So.
Yeah, I wrote I Don't Think So. I published it in 2013. And I was fairly whole at that point. And I didn't even feel like people needed to hear my story. Like I didn't need people to know. But I think that when you're going through hell, you should keep on going. And when you get through to the other side, you should turn around and reach back and take the hand of somebody who is where you've been and help them through too. And so I wrote I Don't Think So because I wanted people to have a step-by-step guide to go, this is how I rebuilt my life. This is how you could rebuild your life too. And I just don't think that it needed to take as long or be as hard as it was. And so I wrote I Don't Think So as a tool to help other people.
And at that time when you were writing this, did you know the impact that it was going to have on other individuals?
I had an idea that it would help, but there was also the other side of the terror of actually telling my story. And when when I actually met with the publisher and he said, yes, he was going to publish the book, I went home and went fetal position. Like I shut down. I didn't know if I could do it. Like we either are self-focused or others focused. So the healthy part of me is going, I need to help other people who are in the same kind of pain I was, or what's going to happen to me if I tell this story? Like, is it me or them? And I had to get through the personal fear so that I could make a difference for others, because it really wasn't about me. And it's all about using our lives on purpose to change other lives.
For individuals that feel like they have a story to share or those elements, but they're afraid of that perception of others, but they know that there's been something influential in their life that could help other individuals, how do they break through that?
I think it can break through just in practical ways. Actually, what was the breakthrough for me between knowing I had a story and actually starting to write was a practical conversation with someone who knew what they were doing, who asked me questions like, so if you were talking to yourself today, you're sitting across from someone who's gone through a divorce, gone through difficult times, they might have their kids, they might not. What's the first thing that you would tell them? And I gave her my answer and she said, okay, and after that, what's the next thing that they should do? And I told her, and she just kept asking questions. And when we were done, she took the piece of paper she'd been writing notes on and turned the paper around, put it in front of me, and there was my chapter outlines. And so it was really simple in my mind of the things that I had learned and processed that I needed to share. It just was overcoming the feelings of, oh, it's my story, it's me. What are people going to think? How do I say this or how do I say that? You really have to understand there's purpose beyond your own reputation or thinking that the only reason for you to exist is to have everyone's approval and making sure you don't ruffle any feathers with something that you say.
I love that purpose beyond your own reputation. I think that's so powerful because we get so caught up in reputation. We want to make sure that everyone knows that we have the nicest car, we wear the nicest shoes, whatever it might be. And we curate our life to look like it's about reputation, but then we often forget the purpose. Garth, how about for yourself? What did it look like to become a whole individual again?
Well, I think first part of it was just starting to like myself and enjoy myself. In that season of working by myself, I went through that process of actually enjoying my own company and enjoying that. Now with that, Melanie shares, she needed 10 minutes and go remind herself of the scripture. I literally had a 10-minute alarm on my phone, not my phone, on my watch. And it would go off. And because it would be like, okay, I don't know if I can make it the whole night, but I think I can probably make 10 minutes. And I would usually go the first different chunks, 2 hours like that, then go like, no, okay, I think I can handle the rest of the evening. But it was just looking at short chunks of time and going forward one step at a time. And then it was really just being okay of who I was. And that was a real shift for me because of kind of my other roles and some of the internal struggles I had. I kept them to myself, because of pride, and didn't want to, maybe did not show weak or have people kind of really know some of the internal, struggles that I was having. But there's a real freedom in coming to a place to go, this is me. Here's the good, here's the bad, here's the ugly. And I kind of just don't care what you think because it's me. And because being in that place of losing everything, I kind of had this thought of going, well, what else do I have to lose? Kind of lost my kids. I've lost my marriage. I've kind of lost a lot of the reputation I have. I've lost any material things I've had. I've kind of lost a lot of hope. I've kind of lost, and I kind of was like, so I really have nothing else to lose. So let's just keep living.
I hope you're liking the episode so far. I just want to take a moment to let you know about something I think is going to make 2026 unlike any year before. If you've got big goals but no clear plan, I made something for you. I put together a 3 guide called the Ultimate Goal Setting Framework, the exact system my wife and I use to turn big dreams into real results. You can download it for free. The link's in the show notes. Start building goals that actually move your life forward. Now, back to the episode.
When I think of yourself, you have always been so open and vulnerable. And I think that openness creates openness. When someone is willing to lay themselves on the table and show like, hey, this is truly who I am, people don't tend to run away. They tend to lean in and they tend to take that reaction and say, okay, how do I model that as well? And I know for myself, that's been really freeing of having someone that's being willing to be open, and I can be open and as well. And there's no judgment. I've called you countless times of different things that have gone on in life, and just knowing that you're going to be that clear voice that brings direction where it needs to bring direction, but also not bring judgment and condemnation when there could be an easy case for that. So I think that's something that both of you do extremely well.
Thank you.
Curious. So you've become whole individuals. What did it look like to all of a sudden bring that together and become one?
Well, I would say for the first thing, so that kind of, even just what I just shared, kind of led us to you would have loved our first date.
I love first date stories.
It was kind of a blind date. And so we sat down in the coffee shop in the evening and did the pleasantries. I don't even know what we talked about. Was it 5 minutes?
It was very shortly into the conversation.
And I just looked at her and said, okay, here's the deal. I'm divorced.
Highly romantic.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just going right for the heart. I'm like, okay, I shared an overlap of the divorce. I shared an overlap of, my kids, the situation with my kids, my financial situation, some of my dreams and visions, some of just life.
But it was kind of like, so I'm divorced. My kids live this far away. Every other weekend I'm driving to get them. They're with me. This is how old they are. Financially, this is what it means supporting them and the household that they're in. And if you're good with that, that's fine. And if you're not, let's just enjoy coffee and continue on our own separate ways. It's all good either way.
Because I knew I was going to be okay regardless.
Yes.
And that was kind of that place of my healing and how it affected that process was like, you know what? I'm going to be okay. If this happens to go somewhere, great. But I will be okay. If I've gone through and to where I am today, I'm going to be okay. And again, not needing to, to kind of impress her, woo her. It was just like, this is me. And then she surprised me and she said, okay. And then she laid down some of her things. She said, okay, I have a son, that's married and I could be a grandma anytime. What do you think? And she kind of laid on her situation. Then we had a great evening.
What did it feel like, Melanie, to have someone just be that open and vulnerable and say, this is my life in a nutshell? What do you think? What was the thoughts going on in your mind?
I'm not really sure why this makes me feel really emotional, but I was in a place of, I knew it was better to be alone than with the wrong person. Yeah. And I think it was just a relief probably to be able to just be open and honest and go, this is what I bring to the table. This is what he brings to the table. If that doesn't mix, we're both free to just walk away. We didn't need each other. We were both okay being alone. I had been single for almost 20 years. And I think probably just the honesty was what actually helped us to be able to move forward fairly quickly. We actually got married 147 days after we met.
Who's counting?
I just came across that in a card I found that I wrote Garth back when we were engaged. But we didn't give ourselves the luxury of falling in love with each other and then asking the hard questions. Neither of us needed any extra baggage or pain. And we also didn't, our kids were both very important to us. So we couldn't bring someone into our worlds knowing that our kids' well-being would be compromised by the other person.
So let's talk about that, the dynamics of the blended family, because I know that that's quite an interesting play. What did that look like to merge these family units together, where individually you've worked so hard to become whole individuals? Now you're coming together and you're figuring out your own dynamics, plus family members. What did that look like?
So we kind of laugh through our experience. A blended family is not at all like a smoothie. It's more like oil and water. And you're putting it together, and if you want it to blend, you just keep stirring. But the moment you stop stirring, things are going to start to separate. So you want it to stay blended, you got to keep stirring. Meaning,
it was really, really hard.
It was hard. It was hard.
And I was completely blindsided, like thinking that a blended family was a thing, thinking, in a sense, you think you're getting a second chance.
I imagine the Brady Bunch.
Yeah. And as time passed, I realized Garth and I love each other and we're happy to be together, but nobody else was looking for another person in their life. Like his kids thought their family was complete without me. And particularly for his daughter, there wasn't room for anybody else in her world. My son was older and already married. Him and his wife were in their 20s, and they're both really open-hearted. So that side was much easier, but it still wasn't easy in a sense of like having family dinner and just trying to get people to connect, even in conversation or playing a game or just ordinary family things. So having a blended family has been a real challenge. We've persevered with that. And of course, we are enjoying some of that now. We're married over 11 years, and Garth's son and my son and daughter and grandkids are all actually very close. And so we enjoy just, I think, a healthy family relationship together. But Garth's daughter's very much at a distance, and that's really painful to be separated from a child.
So it's taken work, it's taken effort. There's been a lot of pain along the way. There's been some joy, and we're starting to see some, I think, the fruits and benefits of trying to be consistent and being consistent over the years, and seeing that, seeing the fruit of that now. But it hasn't been an easy part of life for us.
The best Christmas we had was one year we threw out everybody's traditions and went, let's have a Mexican fiesta. So we put up colored lights, had a Mexican blanket, a piñata, tacos, taco salad. So nobody's expectations were dashed. There was no disappointment because nobody knew what to expect. And we just had fun. And so it's not like it's impossible. You just have to be able to think outside of the box and not like white picket fence, cookie cutter. this is what life should look like and everybody should be happy about it.
I like what you said about the expectation, because oftentimes disappointment falls between the difference between expectation and reality.
Yeah.
And so what people brought an expectation, example, Christmas, and if the reality doesn't hit, that's when that disappointment begins to fester. What other, like one or two things would you say would be beneficial for someone that has a blended family that they can take and try to implement to create more unity?
I would be, if I had a repeat, I would move Garth more towards still doing one-on-one things with his kids instead of us trying to build everything together. I think that was just a mistake. We were doing our best, but in retrospect, it would have been better for them to still feel like their relationship with their dad was a thing, not just a relationship with their dad and this new person. And I'm not saying they never had one-on-one time. I just would give the blended thing much more space.
How about for yourself, Garth?
No, not really. I think one of the things that I've learned in life is we can always look back and think what we should have done, but we don't know what we don't know. And we have to give ourselves grace in the moment and also when we look back. Like we didn't know. So we did the best that we did. And then we can learn from that. You know, it's important to evaluate, adjust, and then move forward, and evaluate, adjust, move forward, you know, pivot, keep going in the same direction if you need to. But just to realize that life happens for us and it doesn't just happen to us. And to reinterpret even just some of the negative experiences, because everything can kind of work together, you know, for us.
Even Andrew, you'll find this funny, but some friends have a home at the lake, and they gave us their place to use, and so we went there for the weekend with the kids, and
we tried a week.
They were in their teens, I guess, at the time, and it was just sheer hell. They were not happy to be there. They were bucking everything, fighting everything, and we like finally packed up and just went home. Like it was really, really awful. And I think it ended with Garth's daughter getting in one of the vehicles to make sure she could ride home with him. And on the way home, she was telling him that when she gets married, I will not be coming to the wedding. And so you have these things that you think are a complete failure. But the next summer, Garth's son says, "Are we going back to the lake again this year?"
And you're probably thinking, what are you talking about?
I looked at him and I'm like, dude, no. And he's like, well, why wouldn't we, Dad? That was awesome. And I'm thinking, that was awesome. That was a disaster. And I don't know, he was probably 17 at the time then-ish. And it was just...
It was shocking to think in his mind we had a good time.
And his interpretation of what, and even his reflection of what it was like.
And so they maybe don't always think it's as bad as you do as adults when you know what could be.
Well, and I think that often of the moments that you create, you don't know how everyone else is perceiving that. You might think that something you're knocking it out of the park. But again, going back to that perception piece of what does the other person perceive as taking place otherwise. And with your son of just, he had a great time. Yeah. Sure, there might have been some fights, but who cares about that? We were by the lake and just having a blast. So I think that's an important thing, especially as parents, to realize that you don't know how this is going to all stack up until it's happened.
Yeah. And then you can also think, well, that happened because we're a blended family. But maybe it didn't. Like maybe the first marriage family 4 doors down was having the same thing. Like, no family is perfect. And so you have to give yourselves grace. There's every family has challenges. Like, the world is not perfect. And we have to just be able to do our best, take it as it comes, learn from what should be a lesson, and keep moving forward.
Let's pivot now, because on top of all of this, you also work together. You run a few different things. So why don't you share what your business is, and then let's unpack that a little bit more.
So our business is called Your Limits Lifted. And what we do, in a nutshell, what we do, and we have discovered this in ourselves individually and together, that our gift, our purpose, our superpower is to help bring order. And we help bring order to people. And so we do that through coaching. We do that through workplace chaplaincy. And we do that through some CRM and some technical solutions for small businesses, in helping, either bring order to their processes, to their systems, to their mindset, to their thinking and their finance. We've kind of touched it in a lot of different areas, but really it's helping people establish order.
Yeah, and primarily order is based around our mindset. Like, we've both changed our mindset so dramatically, and seen how when we change on the inside, it's that creates the change on the outside. Like, where a lot of people think they're waiting for their circumstances to change so that they can be okay. We know that's not the order that it happens in. But so everything we do, even though it has very different brands or packaging, it all at the foundation deals with how we think, our limited thinking, changing that limited thinking, and just creating a greater level of freedom to be and do the things that are on our heart to do.
Because the way, kind of like Your Limits Lifted, the way we lift our limits is by shifting our thinking. And that's kind of the process that we help people walk through.
And I think there's something so impactful of you've walked that. There's often people that are in whatever industry it might be, but they haven't actually experienced it themselves. Like, I think of myself in the financial services. I remember having $60,000 of debt and how crippling that feeling was, and not sure, are we ever going to pay this off? Am I a failure? Like, did I do a disservice to my wife? And then being able to walk through that and feel the freedom on the other side, and then being able to teach other people what to do with their finances, that is one of the most incredible feelings. And so I can only imagine for yourself of walking through, how do you become whole again? What does this look like to have your limits lifted, and to be able to instill that into others must just be such a huge impact.
Yeah, because who we listen to matters. Like, there's so many voices out there, especially now, and it's really important who we listen to, and because there's a lot of charlatans selling all kinds of stuff.
Do you want to name names?
What we've also recognized is it can be a lifelong process. We think so differently than we did, but I expect to think differently next year than I am right now. Right. That life can be a continual discovery process. And who do I need to be to fulfill that next dream or desire? It's what do I have to change in me?
I want to do a couple rapid round questions, if you're okay with that. So the first one that I have on here is, what's a habit that you've instilled in your life that's made a positive impact?
I think one of the habits that I've tried to, I'm going to say tried to, it's an active and it's a process, because it kind of goes against my natural instinct, and that is to think the best. And that's one thing that I've learned from Melanie, and that is always think the best. So if somebody's done something that I don't like, instead of thinking, oh, they're out to get me, no, I'm just going to think the best. I'm going to think the best until I know otherwise. So the habit of trying to think the best was a game changer for me.
How about for yourself, Melanie?
I love God's word. And so that is a daily habit. It's not a checkbox thing. It gives me life. I like to journal, but primarily my journal is not like pouring out my heart. It's writing down what I got in my heart out of God's word today. And I can go back at any time and flip through the pages, and there's still life and inspiration in it for me. And so that's just part of who I am.
What's one book that's impacted your life?
T.D. Jakes' Daddy Loves His Girls. It's hard to even find now, but when I was so broken, I read it and I thought to myself, how could a man even know that a girl has these thoughts? And I wept through the book most of the time. It just helped me connect with God's heart and know that he really did love and understand me and see me. And it brought a significant measure of healing just by hearing those words that were like a dad's voice speaking straight to my heart. I had a good dad, but not really an emotionally available dad. So I didn't hear those things from him, and I needed them in my heart.
How about you, Garth? What's one book that's had an impact on you?
There's several different books, and they're all kind of running through I'm kind of going through my bookshelf that we just actually organized last week, and trying to run through them. But so there's different ones in different seasons that have been kind of life-changing. But one of the more recent ones is, and I don't even fully remember the title, so you're going to have to edit this part out.
Access Granted.
Is it Access? Is that okay? Because I was thinking of the subtitle, and that is Access Granted by Steve Holstrom. And that has brought me through another mindset shift of how I view myself, spirituality, my relationship with Jesus. And it has opened a whole different world to me.
What's one quote that you hold on to?
I mean, I did share the one earlier. When you're going through hell, keep on going. When you get through, reach back and take the hand of someone who is where you were and help them through.
How about yourself, Garth?
There's so many different ones, but probably things have to change in us before they change for us.
Before we land the plane, what does happiness look like to you?
Happiness is being present and finding the joy and the richness in the moment. We have today, like we have the moment we're in right now, and there's so much around us, and we can focus in on what we have and what's available to us, or we can always be looking down the road. But happiness to me is in the moment. What I did with my grandkids this morning, what we'll do later this afternoon, it's taking advantage of the moments that you have rather than just thinking, when I get this or when I accomplish that or when I finish this, then I'll be happy. Happiness is a daily experience. I don't think it's stored up somewhere waiting for us to enter into the season of happiness. It's just here and now for the taking. And that's what I think happiness is.
Garth, how about for you? What does happiness look like?
I would say very similar. Although there's certain environments that just set the tone for it. So I would, without repeating what Melanie shared, it would be that, but then putting it on a mountain stream with a fly rod all by myself, or on my motorcycle going through the mountains in my helmet, taking it all in. Or sitting on a frozen lake with an ice fishing rod and just taking it in the moment. So it's taking in all the different spaces, but the environment can just really create that extra piece for me that just raises that happiness to a whole nother level, kind of just like the perfect storm, bringing it together. But it's a mindset. But it's a mindset, because I can look back and I can go, you know what? I was happy even when there was a lot of despair, because we're either moving forward or we're moving backwards. Like nothing stays the same. And it's just recognizing that if I'm going to always wait for the future, like Melanie said, wait for the future, or when this, then I will, it will never happen. And it's something that we'll chase. And the more we chase things in life, usually the more disappointed and disillusioned we become in the process.
And I think we have favorite places, like Mexico's a favorite place. Garth will go fly fishing and I'll sit on the riverbank reading a book. We have favorite things, favorite activities, but I don't think that those would bring the joy that we experience just in and of themselves. Like if that was our 365-day-a-year activity, we wouldn't be satisfied. I think it's enjoying those days, but the sense of fulfillment that comes from making a difference for other people is really a huge part of who we are. And it's that fulfillment that then doing the activities that we like make life full and complete, like happy on an ongoing basis, not just in a circumstance. And I think you have to have purpose and the fulfillment that comes from that purpose, or you can't really truly find happiness.
Because we are wherever we are. And if we're just dependent on an outside source or circumstance to make us happy, as soon as that ends, then we're back in a place of just disappointment and not really truly living.
Like happiness is being good with who I am and how I'm living more than what I'm getting.
Well, Garth, Melanie, thank you so much for a conversation. Appreciate you both.
Thanks for having us, Andrew.
Garth and Melanie's story is living proof that brokenness isn't the end. Healing is possible. Families can be rebuilt, and freedom is something anyone can experience, no matter where they're starting from. It's been an honor knowing them for so many years, learning from them and watching God restore and redeem their lives and seeing the impact that they're having on many others now. If this episode resonated with you, do me a favor, share this with a friend or hit subscribe.